It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Been a busy day for us all here at Sports Talk, and we are so happy to have the chance to share it all with you tonight across the state of South Carolina. Welcome in, Phil Kornblut up at Clemson for basketball tonight. The day began with a trip down to Charleston Southern. We gassed up. We cleaned up the Sports Talk Pinto. We went down I-26 for the introduction of Autry Denson as the fifth football coach in the history of Charleston Southern. You'll hear from the all-time leading rusher in Notre Dame history. That's who he is. 4 years as the running backs coach with the Irish. Last game, of course, got stuffed by the Clemson defense. You'll hear from him later on tonight. We're at Clemson for the basketball game. We refueled, we recleaned, we came up 26 over to 85, over to 76, over to Perimeter Road, and found our way to the Clemson baseball offices. That's where we are located tonight. It's a beautiful evening up here for basketball. Clemson and Georgia Tech tipping at 9 o'clock. The Tigers trying to get on the board in ACC play. We'll have Dan Radakovich with us at the bottom of this hour. Monty Lee with us at the top of hour number 2. It's also an SC Wild night tonight at the bottom of hour number 2. Captain Billy Downer will be in studio with Will Pelagic and also the Professor Tom Hayes and Brian Leonard back in Columbia. So, guys, been a busy day. It's been a fun day. Looking forward to everything unfolding tonight.
Of course, it is a very interesting Wednesday night, Corn, and a real juxtaposition with two programs, the Gamecocks at Vanderbilt, Clemson, and Georgia Tech on the hoop scene tonight. And really, if South Carolina gets this win against Vanderbilt, it really could spiral them forward to a point where they are basically looking at being in the driver's seat right now, the SEC and hoops. Meanwhile, Clemson, I think, needs this win. I don't know if you can call it a must-win for them, Pro, but they need anything positive to get them in the right frame of mind, because after the weekend bye, they have Florida State and NC State on the road. Those are two tough tests. You could be staring 0-6 right in the face.
Yeah, the tough things right now for Clemson is they have to execute better. It just looks like, it looks like an 8-cylinder car with 2 cylinders misfiring. They have their moments when they really go on their spurts, but they're not sustained. A key tonight will be, where's Georgia Tech? Because obviously pulling that upset in the Carrier Dome against Syracuse, they may be riding sky high, but in for a letdown game for them. For South Carolina, they may be looking in a mirror when they look at Vanderbilt, because last year this time we were saying South Carolina cannot get any consistent point guard play. And since their star point guard, the freshman Darius Garland, has been injured, Vanderbilt seems like a ship without a rudder. So it'd be interesting to see if South Carolina can pour the defensive pressure on the Vandy and steal another SEC road game.
We are less than a month away from the opening of baseball season. With Corn on the Clemson campus, we found it prudent to bring on Monty Lee, the head coach of the Clemson Tigers. They open, again, less than a month from today, the weekend of the 15th, 16th, and 17th of February, hosting South Alabama. Monty Lee will join us to kick off our second hour. And, of course, Corn was at Charleston Southern to talk to Autry Detson. We'll have the one-on-one interview with Corn and Autry there. And, of course, you're being on the Clemson campus, Corn. We have a chance to check in with Clemson's AD, and we have some questions for him, not just pertaining to what happened with the White House visit, but also the investigation that continues and is ongoing with Clemson.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to having Dan Radakovich here at the bottom of the hour, and we'll see what he'll talk about with us along those lines. But just his overall feel for the football season, the way things are going with basketball, both men and women, he's got to feel very pleased with Amanda Butler, his new hire for women's basketball, and what she's got going with her team right now, totally unexpected. And on the flip of that, I think what's happened right now with the men's basketball team, somewhat totally unexpected, but then again not, because you look at the schedule, you see they've played, 3 mega teams in Duke, Syracuse, and Virginia, 2 of those on the road. And regardless of how good Clemson would be in basketball this year, they would have been hard-pressed to win any of those games. So this is a game I think they do have to win. It's early to say must win. There's a lot of basketball to be played, but you don't want to go down 0-4 in the league, especially as you mentioned with what they have coming up. Now, also today, of course, it wouldn't be the state of South Carolina if we didn't have some football to talk about, Will. And you've got it in front of you. The ACC today announced the schedules for their teams for 2019. Clemson's got, in the early part of the season in particular, they got a pretty tough slate to deal with, regardless of how good they will be. They've got a pretty tough opening month of the season awaiting them.
Certainly do, Corn. And it's weird the way that they've organize this schedule. And again, you can talk about how tough it is or isn't compared to at least their ACC slates from years gone by. Obviously, North Carolina is the rotator in there. But as far as making this about as tough as they could make it on Clemson, this is probably as tough as you could have made it, at least in the opening month of the season. The fact that you have Georgia Tech on what is a short week, and the fact that they will have, obviously the entire summer and spring to prepare for Georgia Tech, but the fact that it is on an odd date of the week with a Thursday opening game, we knew that was going to be the case beforehand, as the ACC Network announced that Thursday, August 29th, opening game at Death Valley against Georgia Tech will be the ACC Network debut game. After that, they have A&M, which is already previously scheduled, the return engagement with the Aggies, and then at Syracuse, September the 14th. Of course, last time they were up there was the last regular season contest that went in the loss column for the Clemson Tigers, and no Eric Dungy, but we do know that Dino Babers has seemed to have the number of Brent Venables over the last couple of years, so that's a tough matchup. Home against Charlotte in a non-conference tilt. The rotating game, as we mentioned, first trip to Kenan Stadium at North Carolina since 2010 for the Tigers, and then the open date, first of two of those, home Florida State, at Louisville, home Boston College in the final weekend of October, and then a 4-game November, which begins against Wofford November 2nd, at NC State on the 9th, home Wake Forest on the 16th, followed by the open date, and then the Palmetto Bowl with South Carolina on the 30th. Again, that's probably, Corn, about as tough as you could have made it, because each month probably has what I would consider a tricky part of it when you think about the fact that you got to go A&M Syracuse back-to-back in September, North Carolina an unknown opponent at the end of the month of September, the back-to-back with Florida State and Louisville and Boston College in October, and then NC State on the road, which could be a tricky November game off the Wofford game, and then Wake Forest and South Carolina. It's not easy.
Well, I'm looking at this schedule, Corn, and maybe you can speak to this, because it seems to me, since Clemson has 2 out of the last 3 national championships, this is a schedule I think we can all say they can stub their toe and still they're going to get in the playoff. I just think they got enough juice now that they can be allowed to stub their toe at least once with this schedule.
Yeah, good point. They're kind of where Alabama has been in terms of being able to lose a game at least early and still make it into the playoffs. One other major football note to mention, and that is Jalen Hurts is transferring to Oklahoma. So in my mind, college football, especially when it's come to quarterbacks, college football has become like Major League Baseball after the trading deadline every year. And teams are just renting a player to help them get to the playoffs or help them make a run at the World Series. They pick up a closer, they pick up a starter here or there with no intention of that individual being with them the following year. Just help me get through August and September and October and help me win a championship. This is what college football is becoming now with the transfer availability, the free agency of these graduate players now. It's go to a place for a year. Look at Oklahoma now. This will be, 2 years in a row. They had Kyler Murray for a year. Now they're going to have Jalen Hurts for a year. Is this good or bad? I mean, it's good for the team that picks up a quality player, but really, for the sport of college football, is this what we really want, this kind of movement and free agency in college football?
Well, I don't know how you stop it, Corn. And here's the problem, is that the coaches are doing it too. The coaches are moving willy-nilly when it comes to the assistants and the head coaches. And, there needs to be some sort of ability to lock down on this. I mean, maybe there's a situation where you waive the 1-year transfer rule if you transfer out of conference, or if there's a GPA requirement in there. I don't know how you stop it, but here's the problem. We've been gravitating toward this for the last couple of years, and it's basically hit a fever pitch.
And Lincoln Riley, it seems like a Houdini guy now, because he just take a quarterback, any system, just plug him in.
And he's trying to block his other quarterback from leaving.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, we'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. We'll take a couple of calls if we have them before we get to Clemson Director of Athletics Dan Radakovich. Probably also ask him about the football schedule release today. Tyler hits us up on Twitter talking about my comments saying, as tough as you can make it with Clemson's schedule. Again, not saying that it's tough, Corn, but I mean, the way that you at least saw with their non-conference schedule, the way that they had that already scheduled, I mean, it is a little savage to put at Syracuse right behind the trip against A&M. I mean, you know, it's almost kind of like the ACC leading off conference play with Clemson having to play at Duke, at Syracuse, and home Virginia. Oh, wait, that is what they did. Oh, wait, that is what they did. You know?
It's kind of like the NFL approach.
The
NFL teams, the better teams, get the tougher schedules.
Exactly.
And so the ACC has probably looked at this and said, okay, national champions, let's toughen this thing up a little bit and, you know, give you some kind of a challenge for next year. And I think they've done that with this schedule. I mean, that when I first looked at it, it jumped out at me that the first month of the season looks like a pretty good challenge. The trip to Syracuse will not be easy. Texas A&M will bring a really good football team with an excellent quarterback and receivers, a big-time offense to face what will be a relatively rebuilt defense for Clemson, playing in just its when A&M comes in, that'll be what, the third game?
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Tech. It's Georgia Tech. I don't have it right in front of me.
Second game. Basically,
so Georgia Tech and A&M. Yeah. So
you have
and then Syracuse. That's pretty tough sledding to open up the season. Those three games.
4 out of the 5 teams they play between the first week of the season and the entire month of September. 4 out of those 5 teams are teams that they either don't play often or are unfamiliar with. The only reason they're familiar with the Aggies is because they played them last year. They're unfamiliar with North Carolina because they don't play them. Charlotte's not a team that they play often. And Georgia Tech, they play them every year, but again, it's the cross division, and you're going to have a brand new coach there. And the only reason that Syracuse provides a formidable foe is that, oh, by the way, you did lose to them last. So, I mean, that's not exactly an easy start to things.
Well, if you look at it though, getting Texas A&M early is no great shakes for Clemson, because you know Jimbo's got his quarterback, he's got his system, he's ready to roll. Syracuse, I think, is good to get them early because they will not have their new quarterback broken in heavily into Dino Babers' system. So I think it's good if you're going to go up to that dome, go up to it early when they have a quarterback that's still a little bit green.
I just can't believe they're playing a game on August 29th on a Thursday night. That is really going to suck in many, many ways, to be quite honest with you.
It means we both can go to the Georgia Tech game and the South Carolina game against North Carolina and Charlotte.
I'm not dating you. I don't have to go to the games with you. That's not something I consider exciting.
We watched the national championship game together, and we didn't kill each other.
Don't remind me. 800-956
pizza in front of you.
7266 is the phone number. Let's hit the phones here for a few minutes as we've got Dan Radakovich around the corner. James in where? Williston? James in Williston. James, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
Y'all was talking about Clemson winning 2 of the last 3. You know, Deshaun hadn't went. They could have won 3 in a row, I believe, and you know, I just want to listen to your opinion on that. And just,
man, I tell you, get greedy, don't you? I mean, 2 out of 3 is just not good enough.
No, I'm not greedy. I'm just saying that you know, that,
Trevor wasn't eligible for the Sugar Bowl last year, James. Just making sure you knew that.
No, what he's saying is if Deshaun had not turned pro, they'd have had Deshaun for another year. They could have won another.
He'd played the senior, senior year, I think we'd have won 3 in a row.
I think he's doing just fine making money for the Houston Texans, getting them to the playoffs.
But you know what? I think you are right. I think if Deshaun Watson is your quarterback in 2017, it's a pretty good possibility. You win the championship again with that team.
It was never going to happen, Corn. Come on.
No. I'm just saying. He's hypothetically talking about if Deshaun Watson
there is no hypothetical. He was never going to stay after they won the national championship.
Well, it is hypothetical.
And even if they did win,
hypothetically, if Deshaun had stayed, he would possibly have won another championship.
What would he have stayed for, Corn? The culture?
That's not the point. You're missing the point. The point is the caller is suggesting that if he had stayed, hypothetically, if he had stayed, Clemson would have had a good chance to win the championship, and I would not argue that point with him. I'm not hypothetically talking.
I'm telling you, there is no hypothetical. There was no way that Deshaun Watson was staying after that game.
Okay, define hypothetical for me.
A possibility of something having happened. There was no possibility that he would have stayed.
No, it's not that's not the exact definition of hypothetical. It's I'll look it up for you, but that is not the exact definition of hypothetical. Hypothetical is about something that
or based on serving as a hypothesis is the way that it is.
Well, you can go through the mental. You can go through the mental histrionics.
Nice.
All you can, because my point is maybe Clemson doesn't go to the playoff the year before because everybody was saying, well, once Deshaun leaves, y'all not going to be. Well, when he left, that team got fired up and said, okay, we're going to prove to you. And they did get to the playoff again.
I don't spend time hypothesizing things that never were going to happen.
Okay, that's fine. But hypothetically talking, that's what people do when they hypothesize about things that could possibly happen or might not happen.
I don't hypothesize about aliens existing either. For the
all right, 800-956-7266. Let's continue with your phone calls. We're going next to Billy in Somerville. Billy, welcome to Sports Talk tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. How y'all?
We're good.
I've got a question with the scheduling for both teams. I was wondering if y'all could look it up maybe during break and come back with an answer. Because as I'm looking at from fan base on both sides, if I was like the SEC, especially when it comes to South Carolina and the schedule they got coming up next year, I would much rather play that schedule that Clemson has. I know it sounds tougher, but from what I've heard and what I've looked and seen as far as schedule-wise, and apparently South Carolina's going to either have the number 1 or number 2 hardest schedule in the country next year. And I just want y'all to look that up and see if that's actually going to be a fact or if that's just what people are saying. And as far as the hypotheticals, all y'all got to do is ask O.J. Simpson because he's got a bunch of those. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Appreciate it.
I would say South Carolina has I don't know where it ranks, but it's definitely got to be one of the top 5 toughest schedules in the country for 2019 when you factor in that they're playing the national champion. They're playing the team that lost to the national championship. They're playing a team, 2 teams that have beaten them 5 years in a row in Kentucky and Georgia, playing another team they've never beaten in Texas A&M. They're playing a Florida team that, of course, is up and coming. They got to play North Carolina to open things up, and you don't know what North Carolina is going to be. They got to go to Missouri with Kelly Bryant, and they're going to be excited there. Got to go to Tennessee, where they expect to be better. I mean, there is not Vanderbilt, Charleston Southern's going to have their new coach, but I mean that's Charleston Southern.
I'm telling you, man, if
Charleston Southern, Vanderbilt, and Appalachian State are about your only breathers.
If South Carolina fans were looking for a non-bowl venue vacation for the fall, this is the year to plan it. I'm just saying.
But
this is the Bahamas year.
But I keep telling you, you haven't been here long enough to figure out when you bury South Carolina is when they sit up and say, how in the world this team wins 7 games?
Where do you see 7 games on this schedule for South Carolina?
I don't see 7 games.
He's talking hypothetically.
No, but he's talking hypothetically too because he's saying they're already not going to a bowl. That's hypothetical as well.
I don't think it's a hypothetical.
By the way, this is weird.
Why play the games? I can't
believe it happened this year in 2019 for the football season, but USC and Clemson have 2 open dates, and they are the identical open dates.
Yes.
So we're going to have 2, from a Gamecock and Tiger standpoint, 2 dead weekends during the football season.
You have an extra golf weekend is what you have.
Absolutely. That's 2 extra golf weekends and a chance to go see some other teams, which is what I'm really excited about.
Are you going to golf on November the 23rd?
Golf is not a verb. Golf is a noun. It's a sport.
Are you going to golf on the 23rd?
I never golf. I play golf.
Are you going to golf on the 23rd? There's a good possibility
I'll play golf.
Are you going to play golf on the 3rd?
There's a good chance I'm playing golf this Friday with the temperatures in the mid-60s.
I don't know.
Put that on your calendar.
I don't know if it's going to be warm enough for you on the 23rd, Corn. I know how you hate the cold.
All right, when we come back, Clemson's athletics director, Dan Radakovich. What a run he's had with the Tigers. All he's had a hand in is 2 football national championships and a whole bunch more. He'll join us here after the break. Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a busy Wednesday night. Basketball, USC and Vanderbilt going to tip off a little bit after 7 o'clock. Clemson and Georgia Tech get the 9 o'clock tip tonight here at Littlejohn Coliseum. We are up at Clemson for that, actually located in the beautiful baseball offices for Monty Lee and the players, Brian Hennessy. they don't call them sports information directors anymore. I think he's an assistant athletic director for athletic communications or something long-winded like that. Anyway, thanks to him for taking care of us. And now we welcome in Clemson athletics director Dan Radakovich to Sports Talk. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Phil. How are you tonight?
We're all good. We thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a crazy week. Tell us about the trip to the White House, a little bit different. You guys went inside this time. 2 years ago, you were outside on the lawn. And this particular trip outside the sports world, getting a lot of play across the country. I think it's all good for Clemson because they're talking a lot about the Tigers.
Well, it really was. And, being very fortunate to have been a part of the celebration in June of 2017, and even going as far back as my days at LSU when we had the opportunity to go there. This event that occurred in the evening, where the team had the opportunity to go up in the afternoon, visit the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, amidst all the snow that was in Washington, and then come over to the White House in the evening. It was really great. At the end of the day, obviously President Trump's schedule was completed. This is the last thing on his schedule. And I think there was a little bit different vibe about it, because a more relaxed vibe, and the players really got to see a side of him that I think a lot of folks don't, because it was the end of the day rather than being in the middle of the afternoon amidst his incredibly busy schedule. So I know they enjoyed it. Our staff and our coaches enjoyed it, and members of our board of trustees. So it was a very good event, and I think that everybody had a great time.
Was there any reason given as to why the trip was put together so quickly? I mean, I think in the past, teams have waited into the summer months like you guys did the first time. Why was this one put together so soon after the championship game? Any idea?
I really don't know. It was the request of the White House, and really the biggest linchpin in getting that done was the availability of an aircraft to take the team from Greenville up to Washington. And when that was able to get the thumbs up and we were able to procure an aircraft, we said, you know what, it's probably as good a time as any. Let's move forward. And Coach Sweeney is always about what's in front of you. So to be able to get that celebration and that very important piece of the celebrations behind you of being there and having to visit to the White House, it was like worked into everybody's calendar. So let's move ahead and get it done.
And what's the deal with player participation? How is that handled? How do you open that up? Did you have any players who came forward and said, I'm too busy, I got class, I don't want to go, I don't like this guy, I don't want to go up there? Did you have to deal with any of that?
I don't think much of the latter. I think there were some folks who were, moving forward. Some of the seniors were getting into their preparations for the Senior Bowl, for the Combine. There were some class issues. Some folks had been there previously and wanted to allow some opportunities for others. So maybe 80 some odd players that went, had an incredible time. And some of the folks who didn't make it had their own reasons for doing so. And, we understand that and certainly support that. And a lot of it was due to just moving on into the next phase of their life.
Dan Radakovich, Clemson Athletics Director, with us here on Sports Talk. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is the ongoing investigation into the NCAA failed drug test of your three players. Where does that stand at this particular point? Can you bring us up to date on how much has been accomplished on y'all's end, and do you foresee a result on the investigation on your end, as well as the answer to your appeal from the NCAA end in the near future?
Well, we're continuing to move forward with the appeal. There are some things that we're doing as it relates to testing various substances that we had within our program that we may have prescribed to the student athletes. So those are out getting tested right now. Hopefully we'll get those results within the next 2 weeks and then be able to formulate the appeal and be able to take that forward to the NCAA.
Do you believe that there is any way that the players took something on their own or was given something directly by a trainer in an effort to help them recover more quickly from the
No,
foot injuries that
so
they
I
knowingly
really
took
don't.
something?
I don't even want to go down that road, to be real honest with you. This is all part of the investigation that we're moving forward with right now. And, we're testing our supplements. We're making sure that what we're moving forward, what we had provided to our student athletes was without this particular substance in it. We had a number of people tested, and we had the 3 that were out front and did test positive for this substance. So we're just looking forward to trying to understand the reason. And if it was on our end, we want to make sure to fix it so it doesn't happen again.
Clemson's Director of Athletics, Dan Radakovich, joining us on Sports Talk, and kind to do so here on a Wednesday night in advance of Clemson's basketball game against Georgia Tech, less than a month away from baseball season. We'll have Monty Lee on later on as well to talk about the start of that. Dan, I know that you guys are doing everything you can on your end to try and cut to the bottom of this. I'm just, how surprised are you that this has taken so long to at least come up with a definitive answer how this substance entered their systems?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, these things take time, both from a testing perspective and also from the individual testing perspective and also from the substance testing. So once the second sample came forward and it was positive, we took the steps that were necessary from making these student athletes ineligible and moving forward with the team. Much like, as Dabo had said, there was an injury that had occurred, but we're working every day to find out exactly how this may have come forward, if it was from something that we had provided to the student athletes.
Well, now you got 2 national championships under your belt, and I know the demand for tickets are going to be even greater next year for Clemson football. Do you anticipate any change in the student ticket distribution, and or you're going to open up more tickets for season ticket packages to be sold?
I think a lot of it has to do with, we play the University of South Carolina in Columbia, so that we don't have that ticket obligation this year. So this is one of those years when we do have the ability to have a few more season tickets on sale. So we're looking forward to having the opportunity to provide those to our fans. I think our student ticket distribution will remain basically the same. So I think we hope that there's going to be a great demand for tickets. We're looking forward to them going on sale in March. And we're looking forward to a really good home schedule that was announced today by the ACC.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the schedule the ACC has arranged for you guys?
Well, I think it's awesome. I mean, starting the ACC network with Georgia Tech, I know Thursday night games are not something that are commonplace in Clemson. I think the last time we played one was 2013, again against Georgia Tech. But the league knows that those are very difficult for us. But with the inaugural game on the ACC network, I think that's a great opportunity to showcase the league, and we're happy to be a part of that. But all the other 11 games that we're playing are going to be on Saturday, and 6 other ones on Saturday, followed throughout the year at home. And we're following up the Georgia Tech game with a tremendous home game against Texas A&M. So I think the schedule sets up great. You have to play them, especially all the teams in the Atlantic Division. So we're looking forward to the 2019 season.
All right. So if you don't mind, I want to hold you over for just a couple of minutes. You got time for us before you head over to the gym?
Sure.
We thank you. Dan Radakovich, Clemson's athletics director, visiting with us here live on Sports Talk. He'll be making his way over to Little John a little bit later on. You got time. Tip-off's not till 9 o'clock. You stay awake that late, like me. And we'll continue with Dan Rad in just a moment here on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We continue here on Sports Talk on a Wednesday night. Phil Kornblut up at Clemson. Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, Brian Leonard back at our studios in Columbia. Big basketball night here on Sports Talk. We're going to get into some basketball stuff here with Dan Radakovich, Clemson's Director of Athletics, in just a moment. One more thing, Dan, I wanted to ask you before we move on. Just for clarity purposes, the two players remaining, the appeal for them, is that related to what is believed to be a possible one-year suspension for next year? Is that what they are facing if the appeal is turned down?
Yes, that's exactly correct. That's the the NCAA rule for this type of a test is a 1-year suspension. So that's why we're working very hard and trying to come up with some mitigating factors, and then we will present that to the NCAA.
So since that particular suspension occurred before the playoff, would they be eligible for, say, next year's playoff, for example?
You know, I think that there's some details associated with that. It comes from the time of the second test being opened, I believe. I'd need to check that, but that should be right around that time period.
All right, on to basketball, and you got your men playing here tonight against Georgia Tech. I know the 0-3 start is not something that maybe was expected coming off last year, but then again, you look at the schedule and you see they played three very good teams. What do you think of what has gone on with the men's basketball team thus far? Do you still see a team that can maybe get a win tonight, get a little streak going, and be a factor in the ACC race?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, I think if we look back a year from now, there was I don't know that the schedule was exactly as daunting as it was, you know, the first 3 weeks playing, you know, number 1 Duke, and depending upon which poll you look at, number 1 Virginia, and Syracuse in the Carrier Dome, which is also an incredibly difficult place to play. But certainly, you know, we have the ability in our league, you know, to be able to get on a little bit of a run. I think that would be tremendous, and we've shown that in the past. So we're looking forward to a great game tonight. It's a big one against Georgia Tech, and we're glad to have it at home.
Conversely, Dan, women's basketball has taken off in a very positive direction. How pleased are you with the start of Amanda Butler's squad on the women's basketball side, not only to the ACC season, but it does seem like they have really turned the corner in a direction that we haven't seen in Clemson women's basketball in quite a while?
Well, I'm really proud of Amanda and her staff and the young women who are associated with that program. You know, I think that they played, you know, some of their non-conference games. You know, played Tennessee very well, played University of South Carolina very well. So it gave them a little bit of confidence. And recently, after the 2 wins against Miami and Florida State this week, were named the NCAA Team of the Week, and very, very proud of them. I mean, Coach Butler and her staff have done a great job and worked very, very hard to, you know, continue to, you know, build upon, you know, a positive circumstance that they've created, and really have a great recruiting class coming in. So the future looks very bright for the women's basketball team.
Well, your football team is national champions. I think everybody now knows where Clemson, South Carolina is. But as far as exposure for your other sports, the Olympic sports, how important is it for this exposure with the dawning of the new ACC network?
I think it's really important. I think that all of those factors come forward, whether it's the tremendous reach that our football program has provided to the athletic program and to the university in general, along with the opening of the ACC network come next August. All of those things are tremendously positive, and we look forward to, you know, hopefully capitalizing on that as we continue to not only have an incredibly good football program and basketball and baseball on the men's side, but and golf, and you know, allowing that to move forward and have some positives as it relates to some of our other Olympic sports. So we want to make sure to take full advantage of those opportunities that are ahead of us.
So when do you sit down or hear from Dabo's agent and start talking about new contract and more money?
We'll do that in due time. We will certainly. We've had conversations with them all during the the last few months, and we have a timetable that we're working through, and look forward to having conversations with them in the near future.
Do you worry about the fact that old Mr. Nick is thinking about maybe hanging it up in the next couple of years, and you might not have a number that can match for him?
I worry about a lot of things. It's just that goes with the job. But I think that we're going to do what's great for Clemson, what's great for Coach Sweeney. I think he really enjoys it here. I think we have tremendous alignment with our board of trustees, our president, athletic program, and football program in particular. So I think there's a lot of positives here at Clemson, and Dabo's built an incredible program here, and one that has his stamp all through it.
I was at Charleston Southern today for the introduction of Autry Denson as the coach, and Jeff Barber, the director of athletics there, mentioned that he came to Clemson, I guess maybe a year or two ago. I think it's your invite, and got a chance to go inside and look at things and visit with the staff. And he used in his introductory remarks the feeling of the atmosphere and the brotherhood and the culture at Clemson as something that he's trying to create at his school, even though it's much different and much smaller. And he looked for a coach that he viewed to be very similar to Dabo Sweeney. And so my question to you is, do you hear that a good bit from other ADs who seek you out looking for the next young coach who is charismatic and able to handle himself so well publicly and in the homes of the families the way that Coach Sweeney's been able to do?
Well, there's no doubt about that. Jeff and I have been friends for many years, and certainly enjoyed having him on campus and kind of embedding him into the program to allow him. We knew that there would be another stop on his journey to be able to help show him the things that we're doing. And absolutely, there's a lot of folks that want to understand what the secret sauce is, so to speak, that Coach Sweeney has. And, I think it goes without saying that the ability to keep staff together, the ability to, recruit incredible student athletes there who not only excel in the classroom, but on the field of competition, those are things that he's built over time. And I think that's really important for folks to understand this. While we focus on the things that have happened most recently, understand that there was a process that was put into place by him and his staff over the last decade plus. So it's a great thing to talk about. It's very nice when people want to try to come and emulate the things that have been done within the football program or the athletic department. But it's something that's come with a lot of time and incredibly hard work, especially on the football side.
Jeff asked me to tell you hello, by the way.
Oh, he's awesome. I really enjoy Jeff. He's going to do really good things at Charleston Southern, no doubt. Yeah,
you two, a couple of Mike McGee prodigies, right?
That's exactly right. Had the opportunity to work with Jeff at the University of South Carolina with Mike, and a number of people from around that table where we used to have morning meetings have become directors of athletics. Brad Edwards, Lori Massa, Chris Massaro, and then Kerry Tharp, who's the director at Darlington Motor Speedway. Really fortunate, and had a great group of folks around the table at that point in time.
Yeah, I remember Mike saying when he was hired, "I hire well and I fire well."
That sounds like Mike.
That was him. That was his famous statement. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we will see you over at Little John in a couple of hours. And thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
You, Dan.
Dan Radakovich, Director of Athletics at Clemson, and we thank him. Monty Lee, the baseball coach, will be coming up after the top of the hour break. Also, our one-on-one interview with the new football coach at Charleston Southern, Autry Denson, and recruiting. Some good stuff there coming up as well in hour 2.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, we are back on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Wednesday night. Thanks again to Dan Radakovich for joining us here on Sports Talk prior to the basketball game. Over in Nashville, USC's out to a 6-5 lead on Vanderbilt early in that ball game. Monty Lee is here. Be with him in just a moment. Will, you had a question off Twitter you wanted to get to?
Someone's asking about the South Carolina defensive line hire. All we can basically tell you is the name that South Carolina wants is Marion Hobby, and I don't know if they've officially offered him the job, but I know that that's the one that Muschamp wants. It's a question of whether or not Hobby wants the Gamecocks.
Well, if you go by Tony Morrell, the Big Spur, he has been offered the job, and they're just waiting for a response from him.
It's one man's opinion.
Well, he cites sources, so his sources are telling him that, so we'll live with that for the time being. In the meantime, you know what's around the corner, 30 days away, the start of the college baseball season, and we have Tiger baseball coach Monty Lee with us here on Sports Talk. Thank you so much for coming over. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
You got the itch now? You ready to get after it?
We've been getting after it. You know, we started school last Wednesday, so we've been able to do what we call individual skill work. So we get 4 hours a week with the guys. We put them in different groups and been able to do some live pins on the field, pitchers facing hitters, and we've got a newly renovated batting cage that we put a lot of money in to make it a state-of-the-art player development facility. So we've been using that and taking ground balls and in the weight room and just doing a lot of things in a short, time periods just to try to get our guys ready for the opening of team practice, which is coming up here in just under 2 weeks.
Just to recap, last year, 47-16, 28-9 at home, 15-5 away. Great road record there. 22-8 in the ACC. A great season until you get to the playoffs, and we have what happened there. And I know that's something that you have got to deal with and try and get to that next level with your program is getting past that regional round.
It is. And again, in the last year we had a tremendous year, co-champions in the regular season of the ACC, 4th most wins in the country, hosted a regional for the 3rd consecutive year. And I think there's only 5 teams, I believe, in the country who have done that. So, and we've had a lot of success. We've done a lot of really good things. But that being said, we've come up short at the end of the year. We understand what the expectations are, that, we got to try to find a way to win a regional and advance. And, bottom line is that's my job. It's my job as the head coach and our coaching staff is to try to find a way to put our guys in a better position. If we're fortunate enough to get there, I don't know if sometimes people don't realize just how tough it is to get there. There's a lot of really good clubs that don't make it to the postseason, but getting to the postseason is a reward. And it's something that you need to feel fortunate about when you get there. But what you do is what matters, and we all understand that. So we just got to find a way. It's a long time from now. But it's on our mind day in, day out with how hard we work and how hard we prepare. And, hopefully we can put ourselves in that position again at the end of this year.
You're going to miss number 28. You're going to miss number 27. All those home runs made you one of the top home run hitting team in the country last year. So do you have people who can step in and help fill that void, or do you have to change your style of baseball?
Well, I think we're going to change our style of baseball a little bit. I don't think you'll see a team this year. And we were talking about that today. I hope we hit 90-something home runs again this year. I don't think that's the kind of club that we will have. I think we'll be, we were just trying to look and mess around a little bit today with some different lineups and some different options. And what I see is a team that's got more athleticism. I think this is a team that defensively is going to be a pretty good club, and we've got some guys that can run. I mean, we've got a number of guys who are above average runners all over the field. So I think we're going to have a little bit more of a dynamic club, a little bit more of a versatile club that could run, that's got some depth. Position player wise, but we all know, 2 hardest things, or the only two things that you can't defend is the home run and the walk. And we walked a lot and we hit a lot of home runs. And, I don't know if that's going to be the kind of club personnel-wise that we will be this year, losing guys like Williams and Beer. But I think it's a team that can put some pressure on teams in other ways.
Clemson baseball coach Monty Lee joining us on Sports Talk. You found out the tough way, just how much pitching you need at the end of the season. How fortified do you feel about that staff going into this year?
Well, again, we haven't thrown one pitch, and the only thing that will really tell you what kind of club you got is when you throw them in the fire and you play somebody else. So I mean, it's one thing to say how you feel; it's another thing, to act upon it. And I think that's a big part of it is, you can feel a certain way as a coach, but, that doesn't mean a hill of beans until they go out there and compete and they show you what they can do. I think the proof is in the pudding. So, but you look at just the guys pitching wise, since you asked about pitching, you look at the guys that we have returning who gained some pretty valuable experience last year. We've got, two of our 3 weekend starters back, and Brooks Crawford and Jacob Hennessy. We have key pieces back in the bullpen. Sam Weatherly is much better. Carson Spires is much better and pitched a lot for us. Holt Jones has made a jump, is throwing in the low to mid 90s now. He pitched some innings for us last year. Spencer Strider was a big piece. Matt Clark, Travis Marr, Owen Griffith. That's a lot of names. I mean, that's a lot of guys that have pitched innings here at Clemson and have had some big roles for us. So we feel pretty good about our depth. Where we've got to make some strides is somebody's got to step up and grab that number one job. Somebody's got to be that Friday night guy. And, Crawford is certainly capable of doing it. But we've got a young man. We've got a couple pitchers that we brought in, some young guys, and Davis Sharp, who I think is going to be special here. I think he has true Friday night potential. Justin Robleski, a left-hander who was drafted. Sharp was drafted by the Pirates, Robo by the Mariners out of high school. Robo's got a chance to be special. Jackson Lindley, a local kid here from T.O. Hanna High School, is another guy with major upside. So, we feel like we brought in, a few freshmen that are projectable, that throw hard, that have good stuff, have a chance to be Friday caliber guys to blend and mix with 9 to 10 guys that threw significant innings for us last year. So we feel good about our pitching staff. I feel like I got the best pitching coach in the country in Andrew C., and he's going to get the most out of our guys.
Coach, you talked about your speed you had, and offensively, am I hearing that you're going to morph from Earl Weaver to Walt Alston and do a lot of running at the top of your lineup, maybe speed up your opposition on defense?
That's a good question. I'm a big Earl Weaver fan. He's the one who coined the term, you can't defend the home run and the walk. So that's where I got it from. But Earl Weaver believed in, pitching, defense, and 3-run homers. I don't think I'm a big believer in you have to coach. You have to adapt to the team that you have. I don't think that we necessarily have, a philosophy here that we're going to try to hit home runs. We just happen to hit home runs because that's the type of players that we've had. But we're going to have to adapt a little bit when you've got guys like Kier Meredith, who a healthy Kier Meredith is a 6'4", 6'5", 60 runner who's a left-handed bat. He can get down the line and 3'6", 3'7" on a base hit bunt. Bryce Teodosio is 6'3", 215 pounds, runs a 6'5", 60. Michael Green runs a 6'6". Logan Davidson runs a 6'5". Sam Hall's a 6'7" runner. Grayson Bird's a 6'7" to 6'8" runner. So we've got guys that can run in that lineup. Those are all above average runners. I think we can press the envelope a little bit more. We can hit and run a little bit more. We can try to steal some bases a little bit more. We can certainly score from first on a double. We can score from second on base hits. I think we can create some pressure and do some things with our speed and athleticism. And I think that also, will play on defense as well.
It all starts February 15th. Mark Calvey and company coming in at South Alabama. Mark, so he'll have a team that's well prepared. Thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to a long and successful baseball season following you this coming year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for always having me on, Phil.
Always good seeing you. Monty Lee, baseball coach here with the Clemson Tigers, coming back up in just a moment. We'll have some recruiting for you and our interview with Autry Denson, new football coach at Charleston Southern, here on Sports Talk.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Thanks again to Monty Lee for being with us here tonight on Sports Talk. I want to mention for him that the preseason banquets for the Tiger baseball team will be January 26th. Tickets are available on ClemsonTigers.com. The guest speaker, Joe Girardi. That's worth the price of admission. Fan Fest with a scrimmage and autographs will be Saturday, February 9th at the Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Okay. A couple of quick recruiting items to get to. Important, however. Per a source, running back Michael Dukes of First Baptist will take an official to Clemson this weekend. Clemson is not yet offered, but is very high on Dukes, who's also a basketball prospect. 2020 linebacker Kevin Swint of Carrollton, Georgia, told us Clemson's his big favorite. He'll return on the 26th for a junior day. Committing is on his mind. He said Florida and Wisconsin are two others high up on his list, but trail Clemson by a wide margin. Offensive lineman Darius Washington of Pensacola, Florida, remains undecided. He's taken officials to USC, Mississippi State, and Miami. Said he continues to hear from the Gamecocks. Clemson also has been in touch. He said things are up in the air with the Tigers at this point. He did not want to reveal if he has any more official visits planned at this point. USC signee cornerback Cam Smith told us he still plans to enroll early, just waiting for the go-ahead from the NCAA. Said the holdup has been that he made an improvement in his SAT score, and he had to get that score validated and sent into the NCAA. That has been done. He expects to hear back later this week or next and then enroll. Defensive end Kedrick Bingley Jones of Kannapolis, North Carolina, decommitted from Florida, has a USC offer. Big Spur reported he'll visit USC Saturday. 2020 defensive lineman Alex Huntley of Hammond plans to be at USC on Saturday. Go Vols 247 reported he'll visit Tennessee on the 26th. Clemson offered 2021 linebacker Aaron Willis of Baltimore, currently committed to Virginia Tech. USC coach Will Muschamp was in to check on 2020 running back Don Chaney Jr. down in Miami, Florida, and his dad played at USC. He's expected to visit this weekend. And USC's Brian McClendon was in school today and will be in the home tonight to visit with cornerback DeQuantius Watts from Atlanta. So today at Charleston Southern, they introduced Autry Denson as their new head football coach, formerly from Notre Dame, the running backs coach. And I had a chance to sit down with him and ask him the move from Notre Dame to Charleston Southern. How does that feel?
The opportunity to lead, first and foremost, a program that can honor Christ. And if you understand my why, then you understand it really isn't that difficult of a choice to make. I got into coaching for no other reason than I accepted my call to go into ministry, and God led me to coaching. So my family and I have always said that we will go wherever God takes us. So we've been blessed to be at some places, Bethune-Cookman, Miami of Ohio, South Florida, and ultimately Notre Dame. But that was never our goal. Our goal was just to honor Christ and to go wherever he sent us. So you know what? He called us, he sent us, and now we're here, and we're happy to be here.
Why is this a good time in your life and in your career to take this step into a head coach's job?
Just because it's God's timing. I mean, I'll say it's God's timing, his plan, right? So it's his plan on his timing, and it's because it's when he's called me to do it. So it is this time. It is when he ordained it, and so I'm just obediently following.
You are so deeply entrenched in Notre Dame lore, the school's all-time leading rusher, a member of the coaching staff that got the team to the playoffs this year. What do you take from your years in South Bend that you can apply here?
Oh, man, you talking about the otherness, the being other-centered. You talking about the leadership. You talking about the platform that Notre Dame presents you and the responsibility that comes with that platform of understanding that it's about using it to move others closer to Christ. It's about using it to be a voice for those that don't have a voice. So just those invaluable lessons that you learn as being a student athlete there, and then you come back and you can exercise it as a member of the coaching staff. You now go out, and that's the mission of Notre Dame, for you to come, grow, and then go out and basically disciple the world. So that's what we're doing. We're going out. I've learned my lessons well, and still got something to learn, but now it's time to go out and it's time to work.
Is there a head coach or several coaches after whom you will model yourself as a head coach?
You know what? I've been blessed, man, by so many coaches, and that I've been have the pleasure to be coached by. And so what I find is that I'm a combination of all of them. You know, Coach Host, Coach Dungy, in regards to I'm very even keeled, man, and, you know, do not curse. And, you know, my faith is very important. Coach Desmond Robinson, my running back coach at Notre Dame, the first coach I ever had, and I played football since I was 7 years old, that did not use profanity. You know, started talking about Brian Kelly, being around him, and just logistically, he is like a mastermind in how he puts schedules together. So there have been so many coaches that I am just Chuck Pagano, you know, at the Colts. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Chuck Martin in Miami of Ohio. So really what it is I've been blessed with so many good examples that I've been able to kind of grab and borrow and take the best of each one of them and kind of incorporate it into my coaching style.
And more directly, Lou Holtz, what influences did he have on your career and your life?
Oh my goodness, Coach Holtz, man! To know Coach Holtz, you have to experience Coach Holtz. It is not something you can hear about. You have to experience Coach Holtz. But you know what, Coach Holtz, because he was my first college coach and the first coach I had when I left home, is that it's about life. You know, when you're 18, 19 years old and you know everything is football, you don't understand that it's about life. And he was so tough. He was so demanding because he was preparing you to be a man and a godly man. So just forever indebted to Coach Holtz for being unapologetic about having extremely high standards. And that's something that I definitely have taken from him. You should not compromise. You should have high standards, and you should be able to go and exceed those standards.
As you begin to build things here, will you reach back to your Notre Dame roots and maybe call on some people there for visits and meetings with your players, maybe some speeches on your behalf, something from Notre Dame, because it's such a high-profile organization that can help you get some attention here?
Man, absolutely. You know what? You pull on every you pull out every possible arrow you have in your quiver, man. And I've been blessed to have them at Notre Dame, have them in the NFL, have in the literary world, some people that I've been able to the gospel hip hop world. So we're gonna need them all, man. And I am not against or opposed to pulling on them all. So we use the word family a lot, and I'm gonna rely and lean on my family.
So how do you adjust from going to the big bright lights of a program like Notre Dame, where you've got everything at your fingertips from a recruiting standpoint, a coaching standpoint, to a place like Charleston Southern, which is very, very small, dealing with some NCAA probation stuff? How do you make that transition in your mind, coming down from the top of the mountain to just a small place like this?
Yeah. By emphasizing that first pillar that I told you would be in the heart of a buck, faith, right? Seeing things as they can be and not as they are, right? Notre Dame wasn't always Notre Dame. None of these programs were always where they were. And I feel privileged and blessed to be on the front end of taking Charleston Southern to what it can be, when years later, when Charleston Southern is the standard that everyone is comparing us to in regards to, well, you being on the top of that mountain.
Yeah, from listening to Jeff Barber today, he said the goal is to win an FCS national championship. He also said that he visited Clemson and looked inside Dabo Swinney's program, and I got the feeling he was looking for a young Dabo Swinney type of coach.
You know what? Jeff kind of has shared that with me, man. All I can tell you, man, is I think Dabo is a great coach, man. To even be like mentioned in that, I do not deserve that. But I tell you this is the one thing I can't tell you, that I can be the best archery dancing God has created me to be. And I know that'll be good enough.
What kind of football do you want to play?
Fast, aggressive, physical, nasty, knock you down, then pick you up and dust you off and say something tough in a real Christian type manner. Football. That makes sense.
Offensively, you'll line up how?
We will run the air raid, so we will be spread, multiple formations, and just having fun, throwing and running the ball, but we will be physical in what we do.
After today, after you meet everybody and greet and shake hands, you get down to work, what are the first 2 or 3 things you must do?
Got to get some coaches hired, because I need some people feet on the ground to emphasize or to apply the culture and hold, get the culture established, and then apply it, hold the guys to it. And then logistically, just start getting in and working on the ins and outs and the things you need to do. But really the first thing is the men, the coaches that are going to be mentoring these young men, and then establishing that culture and then holding them to it.
That's Autry Denson, new coach at Charleston Southern. I'm out of here. SC Wild coming up next.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Will Pelagic back here with you on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is time for our twice monthly edition of SC Wild. Captain Billy Dunn with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources is here with us. Do want to at least keep you updated on what's going on with South Carolina hoops. 29-21 lead for Vanderbilt. That game is currently in the opening half of play. 7:39 to play in the opening half. They're at immediate timeout. Of course, Clemson men's basketball tonight against Georgia Tech. But it's time to talk about an overview of the hunting season as the weather continues to turn. We have some seasons that we're closing, Captain, and others that are still ongoing.
Well, glad to see you again, the second time in 2019.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're going to start off a little waterfowl hunting season wrap up still. Not wrapping it up totally. We still got a few more weeks of the season. We'll continue through January 27th. Activity's been slow. You know, it got a little warm this past week. Reports around the state, not a lot of birds. Again, we still got a lot of flooding. So we got a lot of water for local birds like wood ducks still spread out everywhere. But our Category 1 waterfowl area is still seeing some high success. So we're going to go over those a little bit. A little different breakdown tonight on the numbers from last week. The top waterfowl area for the week last week, surprising, Sandy Beach. That's an area over down the edge of Lake Moultrie. Doesn't take a lot of hunters on the hunt, but they had the highest average. I think 3 people go on that hunt. But they had 5.7 ducks per man. The top duck in the bag there was green-winged teal with ringnecks in a close second, and a few blue-winged teal and gadwall showed up in the bag as well around 3rd place. Our runner-up Category 1 area for the week was Cedar Island at Santee Coastal Reserve with an average of 5.3 ducks per man. The top duck of the day there was gadwall. You're going to hear that again in a moment. So gadwall, a top duck there. Blue-winged teal was a distant second with pintails in a close 3rd.
So you're saying that the birds pushed out despite the milder temperatures? Is that something that's typical?
Milder temperatures don't bode well for birds. Typically, when we get a big cold rush of cold air, with birds pushing in front of those. So you think cold air pushes birds out for us?
I would have thought, yeah.
Cold air pushes birds in. Typically, as the front moves across the country, birds are put. You normally see that
so
front
stay
at an angle.
So
they're staying in front of that front.
So they stay ahead of it. Okay,
they stay ahead of it front. So as it freezes, ponds freezes feeding areas up. They're moving in front of it to get to where they can feed. So when it's milder temperatures, sometimes they'll actually go backwards.
So you're telling me if I see a lot of birds, be prepped because the cold is coming.
That's right. It's cold's coming. So when it's warm like that, we can see our birds go to North Carolina.
Gotcha.
They'll move up. I mean, so, but anyway, so
schlubs.
3rd place for this week. Okay, so I said 2nd place. I'm sorry, we'll skip a place. Second place was Cedar Island. Top duck in the bag was gadwall. Blue-winged teal, pintails close 3rd. All right, so 3rd place, Murphy Island at Santee Coastal Reserve. Same overall waterfowl hunt management unit, different area within the unit. Murphy Island, average of 4.7 ducks per man. Top duck in the bag there was gadwall with pintails in 2nd. Very heavy on the pintails there. Green-winged teal rounded out the hunt in 3rd.
So you're telling me a lot of gadwall and a lot of green-winged teal all across the state.
That's correct. And gadwall and green-winged teal would be a reflection of what our waterfowl hatch looked like this past year. Gadwall numbers are up, so we tend to see more gadwall. Green-winged teal numbers are up, so we see more green-winged teal. Blue-winged teal typically move through early in the season and come back through late in the season.
Now, you said that most of the Santee Coastal Reserve seems to be where all of the activity is concentrated.
Yes.
What are you guys doing as a department to, I guess, make sure that the other places folks can hunt at least are at least better over here the last 11 days of the season?
No doubt. So it's a good question. Folks often ask, though, what's the best place to go? Where's the best place to go hunting? Because everywhere's not going to be the same.
Of course.
The Coastal Reserve has got a totally different management style than maybe your Broad River impoundment, where you're doing flooded corn and things that you're growing a crop and you're flooding it with fresh water. Our coastal impoundments, you've got brackish water. You're growing, you may flood some corn there, but you're doing a lot of old rice field management. So you've got trunks and things moving water in and out. You're managing for widgeon grass and other wild food that waterfowl feed on. And traditionally, ducks have always been heavier on our coastline. That's where they've always come for years and years. So the coastal hunts have been very popular. Santee Coastal Reserve is the old Santee Gun Club back from the early 10s and 20s, back when some of the baseball greats came down here. Others, like they went to Yawkey Island, you know, some of the great teams and a lot of the more affluent northern folks would come hunt in the South, and they came down to our coastal area to hunt.
No Shoeless Joe Jackson sightings there, maybe, or no? Could be.
I'm going to say I think that may be correct for Yawkey, though.
Interesting.
Because the owner was the owner of the, well, that would be the White Sox. He was owner of the Red Sox. Didn't own
that Yawkey.
So,
yes.
So it's pretty cool. A lot of cool history there. So the top pintail hole of the week would have been the Cape at Santee Coastal Reserve.
No surprise.
So overall, Santee Coastal Reserve's in the front right now, which is a good thing. You talked about management for us. The last 5 to 6 years, we saw a lot of good success down at Bear Island again.
Yeah.
Bear Island in the past was always a big place. Great management going on there still, but the Cape's got a lot better. There's been some improvements made there, so we're seeing birds up there as well. So when you do improvements and you improve that habitat, you have more food, typically that does equal more ducks.
But you're telling me, again, a lot of this is out of your control because of the, I would say, abnormal winter we had.
Sure. Weather. When you have mild weather, you don't have a lot of ducks a lot of times.
And the wet weather, obviously.
And the wet weather, of course, gives ducks a lot of more areas to go to. And there's other factors, too. Some of our impoundments inland have been we talk about Sandy Beach around Lake Moultrie. Well, other factors have changed. And on Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion, where we used to have lots of hydrilla and submergent vegetation there, it's gone now. We some of those things have changed. So ducks don't come to our lake as much to feed.
Right.
So that changes the patterns of ducks too. The coast has always been pretty consistent though.
800-956-7266. If you have a question for Captain Billy Downer here on SC Wild, we'll gladly take them here for you. So as far as, and again, this is probably a little early just because the season's not over yet, but what I guess you could say is a roundup thing, or at least something that you guys as a department are looking for, at least when the next season opens up? Is there something you want to look toward to try and either change some of the habitats to make sure that you're at least able to shoulder this load a little bit differently?
Well, I'll say this. There's a lot of folks that are quick to jump and point out when our waterfowl areas aren't right. They're quick to jump and say, our folks,
too, huh?
Our folks that jump and say, it's not just in sports. They're quick to jump and say the coach is screwed up. The coach is really messing up, get rid of it. So people are quick to jump and criticize on our WMAs. And I'm going to say this. I don't know of a harder working staff than we have.
Of course.
And I'm on the law enforcement side. Our guys work hard on law enforcement, but our wildlife management folks work very hard. They take pride in their work. They don't get paid a lot of money to do the work they do. They should get paid a whole lot more. Everybody wants to say we all should get paid more, but they take a lot of pride in their work. And the fruits of their work sometimes go unnoticed. Just because somebody may have a bad year ducks doesn't mean that bumper crop of corn wasn't sitting there, that they work time in, day out at night, daylight to dusk, planting, spraying, keeping things good. But our managers on our areas work very hard. And just from year to year, some things happen. Hurricanes have happened the last 3 years, 4 years consistently. We've had loss of dikes blown out, and our folks continue to work to make it successful for the hunter that comes in that spends that $20 to put in for our draws to get there. There's not a better dime you can spend for the product that you get than our Category 1 areas. A lot of props for our folks. They work very hard, and even though sometimes the result may not be what the hunter wants, it's still a really pretty good deal they get there. And I'm proud of our folks. They do a great job. I was down at Donnelly just the last 2 days. Beautiful areas there. Ducks aren't as much as they've been in the last few years, but still beautiful impoundments.
That's a great overview of the waterfowl hunting season with Captain Billy Downer. We're going to come back, talk about a little night hunting for coyotes or coyotes, depending on your preference.
The yote.
The yote. The yote is strong with you. We'll continue that here with SC Wild on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back, Sports Talk. It is SC Wild. Will Pelagic along with the captain, Billy Donner from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Before we get into the night hunt for the Coyotes, you had a youth issue that you wanted to bring up here with the folks.
Oh, yeah, not an issue, but just a little excitement, a little brag. We got this weekend is our state trap tournament. This is our trap open. We have 480 youth shooting this weekend for trap.
Wow, very nice.
That'll be another record for us as far as kids at a trap. It'll be the largest youth trap events that have ever been held in the state. Just the numbers continue to blow me away. But 480 kids shooting at the Palmetto down at the NWTF in Edgefield. If you haven't shot at the Palmetto, I encourage you to go down there. It's open, I think, Wednesday through Sunday. The Palmetto, the NWTF.
Very, very much looking forward to that for our youth. Very, very good to get them started as early as possible.
All right. On to night hunting for coyotes.
We're ready.
Deer season's out. It's the time of year folks like to focus on some predator hunting. A lot of interest in that. If you look at the sportsman channels, there's a lot of interest in coyote hunting now. But the Coyote Harvest Incentive Program was created by the Budget Proviso 4710, passed in 2016 by the South Carolina General Assembly. This proviso directs the department to develop and implement a coyote tagging and reward program. We're in year 3 of that. That's our reward program there. We continue to tag 16 coyotes per year in 4 regions of the state. So they trap 4 coyotes in 4 regions and tag them and release them back. They may cross them over so that they're not in the same areas. But so 14 out of the 16 for this year have been tagged. We have 2 more to go. So the coyotes pretty much have been tagged for this year. They're tagged with an ear tag, which is very visible, big white tag. They have specific information embossed on them. If anyone takes one of these tagged coyotes, save the carcass for verification, and contacts DNR, you will receive a lifetime hunting license for free.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the incentive program, was to encourage folks. There was a fear that folks were not as concerned about the coyote problem we have in our state. Of course, coyotes were not a natural predator in this state, but they have come in for the last 40 years through natural migration and by being imported in illegally, both ways. The first coyote came in the 70s in Union County naturally.
Why would people import coyotes illegally?
So there was a lot of folks like to run their dogs with foxhounds. You heard of foxhounds?
Yes.
Well, coyotes will run faster and the dogs can't catch them. So they get a longer, quote unquote, run. So for many years, there were folks bringing them in illegally. Our undercover team throughout the last 20 years has worked on and off on that problem, trying to control that. One of the biggest indicators that there was a lot of illegal importation of coyotes was after Hurricane Hugo, when all of the pens got blown down. Coyotes popped up everywhere, and when you looked, the coyotes were popping up where these pens were, fox pens. So again, not all fox pens are illegal. Not saying that at all, but there were coyotes brought in illegal in some cases, and that has helped to spread them.
We have a call here, 800-956-7266. Chuck is calling from Greenwood. Chuck, you're on with Captain Billy Downer here on SC Wild.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yes, sir. I would like to request that the state put a bounty on any coyote anybody brings into them.
That's not necessarily, that's kind of the idea of the reward program, of course. When you put a bounty on coyotes unlimited, there's not an unlimited amount of resource to pay for coyotes that are taken. So this is one way to kind of do what you're saying. So that's the idea behind the reward program, is to put attention on the coyote, to attract folks to try to take more coyotes. A total so far of 18 coyotes have been taken out of the 32 released in the last 2 years, not to include the 14 so far this year have been released.
And you have some others that are being used for educational purposes.
Well, now that's a true point. But again, back to this, his point is true. That was why the incentive program was created, was to put a bounty, so to speak, to give an interest, to get people to be more interested in taking coyotes.
Mhm.
And it's done a little bit of increased awareness on that.
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, there's a study going on right now, and the department has been in the process of tagging and releasing a few coyotes with GPS collars, and that's a study with Clemson University. A separate study here. The GPS collars are placed on both coyotes and deer, or in the process of being placed on coyotes and deer right now in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they're also, along with GPS collars on the deer, they're fitting does with transmitters that will actually alert the study group when the does drop fawns, which is very interesting.
Very interesting.
But the whole point of this study is to determine the interaction between coyotes and deer. We know that coyotes predate on deer fawns. We don't know how that interaction happens. When it happens, is it when the fawns actually drop before they get up, before they can walk? When does it happen? It's important to kind of learn that. Do coyotes start following these does around that are near birth? What's happening here? So a lot of interesting facts can happen from the study.
Can they sense a pregnant doe?
That's part of the study to kind of figure that out, to see what the interaction is. So along with this, if you take a coyote and it has a GPS collar, please let DNR know. Again, it's not a penalty. It's just we'd like to know if that animal's been taken so they can get that collar back so the study can continue.
Got it.
But again, so coyote season is in right now. Coyotes are open for shooting all year long. There's no closed season on coyotes. They can be hunted year-round on private lands with a valid hunting license. A free depredation permit can be issued to landowners that do not have a hunting license. See a depredation permit. That's specific to depredation permits. The use of bait and electronic calls are legal for hunting coyotes. On private lands, coyotes may be hunted with any firearm during daylight hours at any time of year. Now, feral hogs, coyotes, and armadillos, it's always funny to pair up an armadillo with a coyote and a feral hog. But hogs and coyotes can be hunted at night on registered property on which a person has a lawful right to hunt using any legal firearm, bow and arrow, or crossbow. This includes the use of bait, electronic calls, artificial lights, and night vision devices. A property may be registered online on the DNR website at dnr.sc.gov/night hunt. So if you go to the DNR website, look for night hunt permit, and you'll see that registering property. It must be registered annually. Property registration is required once annually as prescribed by DNR for each property. The night hunting season is January 1st to December 31st of each year, regardless of when the property is registered. So that was another part of this kind of toolbox we put together to control coyotes, is they opened up night hunting for coyotes year-round and for hogs. Both feral hogs and coyotes are a problem. They're not natural to this state, but they've taken over. They're almost everywhere. Hogs are another big problem. And so the department, along with the legislative support, has opened up season basically on those two animals to try to control their numbers. So again, night hunting is open. You have to register online at the DNR website. So it's unlawful to hunt hogs, coyotes, and armadillos at night on property not registered with DNR. So you've got to register the property. That helps us know where this is taking place, because again,
even if it's a private land,
because you're not limited to your firearms. It's important we know where someone is going to be out there with a high-powered rifle. Persons convicted of night hunting for deer, bear, or turkey during the previous 5 years are ineligible to hunt feral hogs, coyotes, or armadillos at night. So it's that time of year. Coyotes, it's a great. You're doing a service to wildlife and to our environment to remove these animals, because they are not supposed to be here.
Very good. Anything else you want to add as a final thought?
Final thought: if you haven't gone shooting, go shooting at a range, one of our DNR ranges across the state. Enjoy that pastime. We have ranges in Spartanburg, Pickens, down at Belfast in Lawrence County, one down here in the Watery Range here in Richland County, at Twin Ponds on the National Forest down out of Charleston County and Allendale, and then also down at Flatchcola Range in Hampton County.
Look forward to seeing you next month.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it.
Captain Billy Donner with us on SC Wild. Corn will be back in studio with us tomorrow for another edition of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We'll recap the basketball. As it sits right now, Vanderbilt leads South Carolina 37-27 with less than a minute to play in the opening half. Talk to you tomorrow.